Imagine that we were going to take a road trip from here in East Tennessee all the way west on I-40 out to Los Angeles. And it would be no ordinary road trip because let's say that we had heard news that in Arkansas there were zombies staggering around on the highway, and in Oklahoma there were dry land sea monsters out there, and in New Mexico even worse. There was bad news of all kinds that we were hearing from down the road, but we took off anyway. And we started on our journey, and then not even an hour into the trip, say at a gas station in Cookeville, we threw open the doors, threw our pretzels in the air, and started celebrating right there. A person looking on might wonder if we had sized up the situation accurately. It would be like celebrating a touchdown on the 40-yard line. There's a bumper sticker that I've seen, and maybe you've seen it too, that goes, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I've seen it on cars that seem to be from the political left and ones that seem to be driven by people on the political right. It may be one of the few things that a lot of people agree on. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Well, looking at the cavalier response to this pandemic we're in, especially from those in power, I can understand that anger. I've felt that anger. So if you're feeling some holy and righteous anger this morning, I'm with you in that. And there have been any number of articles in the last couple of weeks encouraging us to feel all our feelings, to acknowledge our grief, the anticipatory grief of all that will be lost, and the grief already of the understanding that life will never be the same as it was only 1 month ago. So if you are grieving, I'm grieving with you. It's like the story of Pandora's box with any number of awful things unleashed into the world all at once. But I have to tell you, as I've prepared for this morning, I've observed a strange thing, which is that 2 major holidays this week tell the story of people celebrating long before they were safely delivered and out of harm's way. One is the Jewish holiday of Passover, and the other the Christian holiday of Palm Sunday, today. It made me wonder what that could say to us in this moment. Passover tells a story from the book of Exodus of the people of God who've been in bondage for years, making their break for freedom in a time of plague after plague. It might seem relevant to us now, living in a plague time. So together they get out of Egypt and cross the Red Sea, escaping their captors, and it's there on the far shore of the Red Sea that Miriam, the sister of Moses, starts up a dance party. I think of her as something like Danette Jackson, who some of you may know, who's a DJ in Knoxville. You can see Miriam there saying, "Everybody, let's party." And so that's what they do. They all sing, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously." That's how they had parties back then. As you picture that story, you can imagine widening the camera lens out from that scene to show endless miles of wilderness stretching before them, along with years, 40 years it turned out, of hardship, loss, and confusion before they even approach the promised land. But there, back near the beginning, they're already having a victory dance. The Palm Sunday story has a similar moment. For generations, the people of God have waited under conditions of oppression for a Messiah who will deliver them. What they had in mind was something like a conquering king on a white horse, and what they get instead is a scrawny peasant, Jesus, riding on a donkey. You can picture the high, thick walls of Jerusalem like a fortress as he passes through that opening, and the guards looking on, maybe a little amused. But the people who love him rush out in celebration. They throw down their cloaks before them and branches with palm leaves. They shout, "Hosanna," which means something like "our help, our salvation." And they sing a verse from the 118th Psalm. "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of love." If you know anything about what unfolds throughout Holy Week, you know that sorrow and betrayal are only some of what lies ahead. But there at the beginning, they're already celebrating. What are we to make out of all of these people? Have they just lost their minds? Are they not paying attention to know enough to be angry? Don't they know enough to be scared or to grieve? Well, what I've been thinking is that it's possible for more than one thing to be true at the same time. It's possible for a person to have reason for anger and reason to grieve, and yet in the same moment find a reason for joy. A week ago, about one of the last times I've been anywhere lately, I drove out to my mother's house to get firewood, and on the way I passed a little sign on the side of the road stuck into the ground. It said just a few simple words. It said, "It will be okay." And that hooked me. It hooked me so much that I doubled back so that I could take a picture of it. It will be okay. It hooked me because I wasn't sure if I agreed. Will it be okay? Could it be? The number of cases keeps going up. The number of jobs in this country keeps going down. The projections are grim, and we've not seen the worst of it yet. How dare that little sign say, "It will be okay"? It made me think of a powerful moment about 15 years ago when Jim Harb came to our church to give a talk on a series about the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Jim has dedicated his life to peacemaking, including founding the long-standing annual picnic between Muslims and Jews in Knoxville. And after his talk, someone in the audience gave a simple question to which he responded with a complex answer. And the question was, when exactly did this conflict begin? To which Jim smiled and said, "That depends on when you choose to start the story." How you understand the events of today, he said, depends on what story you tell. How you see today depends on the story you tell. The story you tell depends on the facts you include. If you pay attention to reasons to be angry, you can be angry. If you collect all the evidence for reasons to grieve, that's an option as well. But more than one thing can be true at one time. More than one story is at play at each moment. Remember the wildfires that swept through the Smokies in the fall of 2016? One of the worst natural disasters in the state. Acres destroyed, homes and businesses burned down to nothing, lives lost. I took a drive out there that December just to see. It was bleak. The earth turned to black ash, the trees like out of some hellscape. But only a few months after that, back again, if you looked, things had changed. Through the mountainsides of black ash, you could see sprouts of green, signs of life. The fires were awful, but they didn't have the last word. They took down trees, even mountainsides of them, but they couldn't stop life itself. If you went there today, you'd still see signs of devastation. But that's not all that you'd see. More than one thing can be true at one time. More than one story is at play in each moment. And from my observation, one of the stories in play at each moment is the story of healing. That's true on a mountainside charred with black ash. It's true when you cut your finger, even before you find that box of Band-Aids wherever they are. It's true when you're in a relationship that's caused you so much pain. It's true even this morning. The power of regeneration and renewal and healing is at work. And from what I can tell, it works in a particular way, not in spite of suffering or outside of it, but moving through it in the unlikeliest ways. You may see that healing and creative power in a different light or by a different name, but I understand it as the presence of God. I understand my life as part of that story, as part of that power, as part of that healing. I see you in the same way, as part of life's holy process, in which nothing is ever wasted, and everything is unfolded in an unfurling story of the ultimate triumph of love. When I say we have a part in the holy process, I don't mean I believe we merely observe it or receive it or somehow tap into it. I mean we help bring it forth. We are midwives of it. We help it find form in this world, in this life. Each of us has a place and a purpose and a part we can play. Yours and mine will be different, but each of them is important, and at this moment that's especially true. Yesterday, I heard a story about Wendell Berry, who's the Kentucky poet, farmer, and ecologist. Apparently, after he was somewhere giving a talk, someone in the audience stood and said he had just come into a large piece of land. He asked Wendell Berry what he should do about it, what he should do with that land. As the story goes, Wendell Berry responded in this way. He said that before the man did anything with the property, before he got out the tiller or the bush hog, he should ask himself 3 questions. Number 1, what was nature doing on that land before he got there? Number 2, what would nature allow him to do? And the third, number 3, what would nature assist him in doing? Well, you and I right now have not come into a large piece of land. What's come our way into our hands is a moment in history, a moment in our lives that may seem so vast and complex that it's like we're in a wilderness thick with underbrush. We may be tempted in a panic to leap into action, or else we may want to just crawl into bed and pull the covers up over our eyes to wish it all away. But in Wendell Berry's advice, I hear a third path to take. If it's true that the holy process of love is present and at work in each hour, before we did anything, what if we were to ask ourselves those three questions? First, what was love doing here in this world before we got here? Second, in this moment, what would love allow us to do? And third of all, what in this moment would love assist us in doing? Can you imagine understanding the answers to those questions as applied to your life? Can you imagine understanding your part in this moment, so aligned with the healing process, already in motion, that you just kind of trusted that whatever you did was in the creative and redeeming service of love? How would that change your mornings and evenings? How would it change your household? How would you bless your neighbors? All of us, all together, how could that change the world? If this quality of discernment and clarity of purpose were true for all of us all together, even in this moment, when so little is clear and so much is so frightening, I have the sense that against all reasons to do otherwise, we might just feel like dancing. We might just celebrate. If we did, it wouldn't be from delusion. It wouldn't be that we'd miss the signals of how bad the news is. It would be that we understood that more than one thing can be true at one time. It would be that we saw ourselves as part of a story of healing, a story of redemption, a story of justice, a story of peace. And we'd feel that power within us and among us, and we'd know it beyond us, already at work in this world. When the people of God had not come very far, Miriam told them it was time to celebrate. When Jesus entered into the fortification of Jerusalem, the people all gathered and shouted Hosanna, singing from the Psalms, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of love." And years from now, when those who remember us look back on this moment, they will likewise celebrate how we lived, saying, "Blessed were those who rose in faith at that hour. Blessed were those who kept hold of their joy, who kept hold of that power, who understood where they were in this long, long story. Blessed were those who came forth together in the name of love." So may it be.